Muy bien, como decía Deborah Wetzel, estamos llegando al
As Deborah was saying, we are getting to the end of this conference on governance and growth with equity.
first one. Okay. Vamos a escuchar.
We are going to listen to Mariki Vignani in the closing ceremony. Let me also invite Minister Danilo Astori and Mr. Jorge Familiar to share some final remarks with us. It's been a day and a half, but it's been so intense. It looked like more than a day and a half. So this has been very important to grow with equity and transparency. So the final remarks will be in the hands of the three speakers. We would like to listen more to them. The discussions have been very short. We don't have time for more questions, but let me tell you that as from Monday, you can connect www.worldbank.cuentas claras. You will access all the material produced during this day and a half. Mari, your final words, please.
Dear Vice President Familiar, dear ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to provide closing thoughts as the regional conference on governance for growth with equity in Latin America comes to an end. I would like to congratulate the World Bank and the meeting organizers for recognizing the growing importance that inclusive growth is having in Latin America, as in the rest of the world, for sustainable outcomes, trust in government, and the well-being of our citizens. Acting in today's global landscape, governments are expected to respond to increasingly complex economic, social, and environmental challenges. By the end of 2016, our global economy will have experienced 8 years of slow and hesitant growth. And at the same time, high levels of unemployment, slow productivity growth, and widening inequality are undermining our social contract and decreasing trust in public institutions. By 2050, the world population is also expected to increase from 7 billion to over 9 billion. And this will also create additional needs for energy and resources. We will also have to look to more efficient and environmentally friendly solutions to guarantee adequate living standards. So, given the pressing nature of our current challenges, why are governments not moving faster in all these areas? I would like to make 3 main points in answer to this question. Firstly, governments often lack the information, the capacity, and the resources to address these issues alone. They need to find new and more collaborative ways of working to meet society's expectations and demands. In other words, citizens must engage the public to achieve results. This is particularly critical at a time when citizens' trust in public institutions is low. During the panel session today I attended, we discussed that governments must empower people to take a more active role in shaping, delivering, and monitoring policy making. And this can be achieved through targeted action to foster transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. They also need to safeguard human rights and freedoms. In other words, promote open government. Secondly, global challenges are increasingly characterized by complexity, surpassing the mandate of individual ministries or departments. They even surpass the mandate of governments. So what is needed is effective implementation of an overarching vision led and coordinated by a center of government. This center should make effective use of strategic planning and foresight mechanisms to anticipate necessary resources and drive a coordinated approach to public service design and delivery. Thirdly, given this complexity, governments should embrace new insights from a multidisciplinary approach to policy making. The challenges that confront us today are so complex. We must strive for fresh thinking, rigorous policy analysis, and actionable policy solutions across traditional boundaries. Underpinning all of this is the importance of public governance. It provides the framework of institutions, policies, and initiatives for different societies and economies. Without effective framework conditions, governments are unable to adequately address the challenges of the future. As evidenced by the recent crisis, piecemeal approaches and quick fixes will not increase resilience and productivity, nor will they generate sustainable and inclusive growth. And in this context, this conference on governance for growth with equity in Latin America could not be more timely. We reached much the same conclusions at the OECD Public Governance Ministerial Meeting, which took place in my hometown Helsinki last October. Their ministers articulated a new vision for the public sector in which public governance frameworks need to evolve continuously. They need to evolve to overcome a modus operandi of governments merely react to the most pressing issues on the global policy agenda. There is no finish line for governments to anticipate and look ahead. What I have heard at this conference confirms what we are seeing in OECD and OECD partner countries. Countries are increasingly learning to draw on the broader society for the knowledge and insights needed to respond to today's complex and constantly changing environment. They can only do so by being more open in decision-making, implementation, and evaluation. And at the same time, they need to constantly monitor their own productivity and the impact of how they work on the productivity of the economy. Lastly, they also need to invest in their own capacity to work in more agile and innovative ways. Ladies and gentlemen, rather than being intimidated by the size of the tasks at hand, we need to take action. We all have an important role to play. Governance is the single most important factor in ensuring that inclusive growth is effectively achieved, that sustainable development goals are attained, and that COP21 commitments will be observed. And by governance, I mean a public sector that works and a government that delivers. An effective and accountable public sector is essential to support businesses that create jobs, equip young people with the skills, and provide access to health, education, and social services. The OECD's goal is to promote better policies for better lives. The exchange of experiences over the past 2 days have helped to contribute to building shared knowledge, actionable data, and benchmarks to help achieve this goal. So let's use these insights to build a better future for all. Thank you.
Las palabras de Mari Kiviniemi, secretaria general adjunta de la OCDE. En este cierre de nuestra conferencia voy a pedirle ahora al ministro de Economía y Finanzas del Uruguay, Daniel Astori, que pueda también.
And here we have Danilo Astori, Minister of Finance of Uruguay, to give us his closing remarks. With a bit of nostalgia that we feel when we are finishing an activity that we have enjoyed, but also with the hope and the feeling and the positive balance that we reach thanks to the conclusions of this meeting. First of all, I would like to thank all the people who have contributed with their effort, with their work, first of all, to make this meeting possible, and in the second place, to enrich it with presentations that have had a degree of depth and of complementarity that is very rich. Those who have asked questions like the one we have just heard and the answers that they motivated from the speakers, all of them have contributed to the result, the positive result that we were just mentioning. But first of all is thanking, and from the government of Uruguay we feel very grateful to the authorities of the World Bank, to the Vice President Jorge Familiar for Latin America and the Caribbean, to the representative for our region who has worked so hard to achieve this result, to Matilde, our resident representative of the World Bank from Uruguay, Jan Fernandez, our representative at the World Bank in Washington, Mariela, who worked so hard too from the ministry to make it this possible. Every time you mention people, you run the risk of forgetting, but I would like to embrace everyone who made a contribution to the result that we have achieved and who will be projected into the future. If I had to choose a word, a concept, which in my modest opinion would summarize the reflections that we have made in this meeting, I would choose the concept of orientation, of course. The virtuous change starts by the strengthening of the institutions, and first of all of the law, and follows with transparency, with accountability, governance in the road towards development. I would choose this concept. We have tried to reflect about the orientation, the course ahead, by knowing, and allow me to repeat a concept that I mentioned yesterday, that the agenda is completely open and that we have to continue working not just in seeking new tools that will allow us to overcome the situations that have been mentioned in the conference, but also to play with our realities, our stories, our cultures and backgrounds, which are not all the same. And what do we share? The orientation, the course ahead, the journey, the importance of continuing in this path and becoming, from this point of view, walkers like Antonio Machado mentioned, those who, when they look back, they see the tracks that they will not step on again, because they will continue forward through this path and through this road. And to end, I will use another concept that I think has been repeated in all the panels from very different perspectives at times, which has made the meeting very valuable, and that is the appraisal of politics. We are talking about evaluations of reality. We don't move forward in institutional strengthening, in transparency, in governance, if we don't have specific actions. That will not come from the skies. We have to do that. And to do it, it will require to do politics, because transformations are achieved through doing politics, and everything that gives a hierarchy to the political activity is a priority. We heard today about how there's a lack of trust between the societies and politicians, and with these injuries to trust, it's very difficult to progress and increase the quality of politics. Societies are not changed by politicians, they are changed by all the society as a whole. The politicians in the government try to stimulate coherent behaviors with the aims that are set, and the societies respond to the stimulations that the politicians set, but both have the enormous responsibility through social organizations, as we just heard, and through the political parties, and their strengthening the enormous responsibility of achieving that quality. So democratizing the political parties, stimulating the tasks of study and programming of realities, and specifically promoting the necessary discipline of any strong political party are priority tasks for this path and this orientation that we were just mentioning. So once again, we have felt extremely honored in Uruguay by the decision of the World Bank of holding this meeting here, and we hope that they will have represented an effective contribution to continue in the virtuous journey towards the transformation that we all wish. Thank you, Minister Astori. And lastly, the words of our main host, the Vice President of the World Bank, Mr. Familiar. Good afternoon, everybody, friends. Joint Secretary of the OECD, Minister Astori. It's really satisfactory to reach this point. I had very high expectations of this event, but they have been left short, especially for the quality of the presentations, but even more for the quality of the conversation. I think that the topics that we have approached throughout this day and a half are fundamental for the region at this historical moment. I think that a recurring topic that we have heard during this day and a half is related directly to what has changed in our region. And it is a fact that we are living in a Latin American region that has suffered a deep social transformation. There's less poverty, there's a middle class that is appearing, there's a citizenship that is connected, that is more active, that has expectations, that has huge expectations of a better life. And these expectations have been forged at a time of high growth and very fast growth. And this implies, among other things, challenges very important for all the Latin American society and all of those of us who are interested in the welfare and development of Latin America. Ahead of us, we have a series of very big challenges for creating opportunities, for creating work options for Latin Americans. And it's very clear that the environment that will allow us to do that is less favorable nowadays than it was 10 years ago. And in this less favorable environment, it will be very possible for us to adapt to the new reality and for us to set the foundation for future growth. And not just to set the basis for future growth, but also to protect the most vulnerable and those who have the least. And this requires decisions that in many cases are complex. It requires doing politics, as Minister Astori was mentioning, and one fundamental aspect of making these decisions and doing these good politics in general befalls to trust conditions, because it is required not just from governments and also from the legislative powers to make decisions. The whole society is required as a whole. So we need trust, and I think that the different issues that we have discussed during this day and a half are precisely the fundamental building blocks for this trust. Transparency, accountability, and generating the security for the citizens that every peso that they pay in taxes will be used in the best possible manner. This is indispensable and fundamental for earning their trust. So, I think that everything that is good will come to an end. We've had a fantastic conversation here, but I hope that this will be just a step of the many we have to give. And I hope that the interactions and relations that have been created in this event will be continued in the future, and we will help each other to take this conversation and transform it into specific facts and decisions in the benefit of our region and the benefit of Latin Americans. I cannot leave the microphone without thanking the people who have participated and who worked tirelessly for months and weeks. And as the days of the conference came closer, they worked intensive hours because so that everything flows and happens in a seamless manner that we could see. So we have the teams of the World Bank in Washington who worked very hard on technical aspects. I will not run the risk of the minister, so I have decided not to mention any individual persons because I am sure that I will forget somebody and that would be unfair. People who worked in the logistics and that supported us for everything to work fine. I know that they have worked very hard and we are extremely grateful to you, but especially I would like to thank Minister Astori and his ministry, Uruguay, for receiving us in their country with this warmth, which is a big contrast with the climate out there, and which we always appreciated enormously. I'm convinced that we couldn't have chosen a better place for this meeting. And finally, to reiterate that the World Bank, which is an institution that has a global vision and reach, has a heart that is very close to the region and to the countries, and we are open to serve you, to continue this dialogue at the regional level and to work at the national level also to make progress in this ambitious agenda we have set for ourselves. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Mary Kinievi, Minister Astori. I would like the applause to continue for each one of you who has made this conference a success, because with your contributions you have helped us to take away with us very important tools for the changes that have to take place. So